It's time for Cutting Edge Consciousness with Freeman Michaels and Barnet Bain. Thought-provoking discussions and bold ideas from the edge of possibility.
And welcome to Cutting Edge Consciousness. This is Freeman Michaels here.
With Barnet Bain. We are very glad that you're back with us for another round of Cutting Edge Consciousness.
Right on the edge.
Right on the edge. I'm feeling a little on the edge today.
You've been on the edge.
I have been on the edge.
You actually went over the edge. You tipped.
I did tip. I am, for those who have these benefit of these fantastic in-studio cameras, you can see I'm a little banged up. I live in the ocean and I surf a lot, and the water has been really cold, and so I borrowed a 4.5-foot long skateboard from my daughter, who left home a long time ago, but left her skateboard.
Yeah, of course.
That was a
just
mistake.
in case you needed it.
And so I was in the parking lot of the beach lot, and I hit a pebble.
Yeah.
And the ground is a lot harder
than the water.
I have to tell you. It's just like light.
I'm sorry I'm laughing. I've actually seen some of your war wounds, and it's not funny. It hurts.
It hurts. It really hurts. What really hurts is, people like in the grocery store, and it's a very small community I live in. They look at you like, "What happened to you?" and I stopped telling it because they say, "Barnet, you're 60 years old.
What are you doing?
Get a life." You may have to decide what your priorities are. This Mr. Peter Pan.
Yeah, but it got you in your body. I mean,
I'm feeling things.
Yeah,
it did get me out of my head.
Who knew?
That's a good thing.
Well, there's other ways to get out of your head, but
yeah.
Needless to say, this is one of them. One of the ways out of your head.
Well, there's so many ways. This is interesting that you bring that up. There are so many ways that I've become masterful of being in my head.
Yeah.
And I was watching Bill Maher the other night.
Okay.
And I learned from Bill Maher one of the key ways that I keep myself in my head and out of my feelings. And this is fantastic. He had on Julian Assange live from the Ecuadorian embassy, where he's a virtual prisoner in London.
This is the WikiLeaks guy.
This is the WikiLeaks.
Yes, I know who you're talking about.
And they got into some sort of a conversation about what is appropriate. Is it always appropriate or inappropriate to publish whatever comes your way? And
right.
It was interesting that Bill Maher took the contrarian view this time, and that, well, what about if there's some circumstance where many lives are at stake, and if you publish this, and Julian Assange said, "You mean hypotheticals?" And Bill Maher said, yeah, hypotheticals. Like, we got bin Laden by, this way, and what if there was somebody who knew about, about bombs or things, and if we could just waterboard them, is it worth it? And Julian Assange said, very calmly, I won't go down the road of hypotheticals. Hypotheticals are a loser proposition.
Yeah.
And I thought about that, and I realized something profound, that hypotheticals, these what ifs, yeah, but, what ifs, they are a mechanism that I use in my own life to double back into what is familiar.
Big time.
To double back into the realm of logic and reason. And one thing is for certain inside of logic and reason. Logic and reason has its place. But but we know where it'll end up. You cannot ever resolve anything in logic and reason. And at some point, I think we move beyond logic and reason without losing sight of it, and that just might be a hallmark of wisdom.
This is probably not the official language, but hypotheticals always seem like a buzzkill.
Yeah.
Like you start on something, you're inspired, and nothing kills it more than, the what ifs. It
brings you back to the past. It brings you back to what is known.
Right.
What my own history is, or whoever is doing the what ifs, or whoever is doing the hypotheticals. It is a way to shoehorn something that might be emergent and innovative,
big time.
Something that might be paradoxical, something that might be a bigger cut of being in relationship to all that is, and reducing it to what we can slice and dice, blacks and whites, as my dad used to say. What did my dad used to say? Probably the same thing your dad used to say.
Yeah, all
rocks
the
are hard.
isms. No, if you've got lemons, kid, make lemonade.
Make lemonade. The world's a struggle.
Yeah, if you made your bed, kid, now lie in it, or whatever. Never expansive, never really generous, and no fun at the end of the day. Just a buzzkill.
Well, a lot of roped off boundaries.
Yeah,
you got to stay in the lines.
That's right.
It's a little scary.
Stay in the lines,
outside the lines.
Yeah,
because there's hypothetically, who knows what could happen?
Don't color outside the lines.
I bet we could use some coaching around this.
We could definitely use some coaching.
I wonder if we could get anybody at this late hour.
Depends when you're listening, or this
step
early
in
hour.
here and do a little triage on us. We are really fortunate to have with us as a guest today my dear friend.
Moment.
In this very, very moment, we just happened to have Cheryl Esposito. Cheryl founded, all seriousness aside, Cheryl founded Alexa Consulting and the Center for World Leadership to help CEOs and senior execs and coaches and confused people like us to up-level their game. She's the author of In the Spirit of Leadership, A Vision into a Different Future. She's the host of the weekly radio show Leading Conversations, and she is our guest today on Cutting Edge Consciousness.
Welcome to the show, Cheryl.
Well, thank you both. Thank you, Barnet and Freeman.
You got our lifeline. We need you.
I'm so happy to be here. I'm always happy to be with confused people.
Good.
That's good.
Well,
you can join us often.
This is the right place for you.
I feel like I'm with my peeps.
Well, we've actually come to embrace our confusion because, look, we, both Barnett and I, have organized and ordered things for far too long. And there's a lot of disorder, which we're calling good news. There's a lot of uncertainty, which is really threatening, at least for me, the part of me that likes to be certain. But that's the state of affairs we're in, at least in my experience. The view of the world that I'm seeing sees a whole lot of things that I once believed were true that are questionable. And I know this is true in business. The world's moving fast. Technology is changing everything at a pace that no one would have ever imagined. So something that is, reliable in one moment, a strategy or a technique or a product, in the very next moment could be completely obsolete. How do you handle this with the folks who come to you and say, okay, look, I used to believe, or I was always told, yada, 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 but now that doesn't work?
I'd say, thank goodness you're right on track.
That's it. That's it.
Phew.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true. Most of my clients get to a place in their life where they know, they turn around, they look at all their success, and they say, is this it? Is this all there is?
Right.
And it no longer makes them happy. It no longer is satisfying, and they know in their gut there's something else, but they have no idea what that looks like or how to get there, or if they even have permission to step out of who they are.
And that tyranny of the mind, that hypothetical, or the myriad hypotheticals Barnett was referring to, isn't the vehicle to get us there.
Oh, really?
Well, I'm suggesting that. I don't know if that's true or not. You tell me. I'm the confused guy.
Oh, I was right with you listening to you guys this morning. I thought, all these things that you're talking about, I'm in.
Yeah.
I'm the coach. I'm supposed to be the one who's got it all together, and yet I go through all this.
Come on. I know you. You've got it together.
Don't pop his bubble.
Well, of course, I have become really, really good, just like you guys have, at showing up really, really well, competent, got my game going. And I do it. I am that. And often there's this little voice that's saying, oh, gosh, I'm not good enough. Maybe they're not going to like me. This doesn't feel fun anymore. Oh, geez. And so and what if they find out that I'm thinking this? The what if. And maybe I shouldn't even show up.
Well, this is what happens. People reach any number of their possible edges. It could be an edge of competence. It could be an edge of quality of life, an edge of meaning, an edge of purpose. And for whatever reason, however it is stimulated, they suddenly sense a hollowness. Dante so beautifully said, midway through my life's journey, I came to a place in a dark wood and the way was totally lost. And we don't have any sense of connection, and it's terrifying. And the flip side of it is
it's exhilarating.
Yeah.
It's a possibility to reinvent. It's a possibility to recover and discover an entirely new relationship with life. And now this is what you are doing with a great many of executives and leaders that you work with. I'm curious. I've heard you speak from recently, speaking from a platform, speaking from a stage, and you said you were talking about what is emerging, what is happening in the area that so many are calling transformational leadership.
Right.
And I heard you say, well, you meet people where they're at. And it seems to me that there is there's a spectrum of where people are at always, and even inside this so-called area of this transformational space, there is a spectrum. On the one hand, there are folks who are incredibly, incredibly competent in the traditional top-down leadership, top-down command and control leadership model, very, very competent, and find that there's diminishing returns there. And on the other hand, there is the Mark Twain model. Mark Twain, in his unfinished last novel called The Mysterious Stranger, and I'll just read to you a couple of sentences. He said, "Strange indeed that you should not have suspected that your universe and its contents were only dreams, visions, and fiction. Strange because they're so frankly and hysterically insane, like all dreams." And then he goes on and he says, "The silly creations of an imagination that's not conscious of its freaks, that's your experience. In a word, they're a dream and you the maker of it. The dream marks are all present in your life. You should have recognized them earlier." So Mark Twain is referring very literally to a certain kind of to the plasticity of waking life, and he's not suggesting, or he's not suggesting that it's any different from the nighttime experience, that it follows belief and thought and choice and decision and attitude and feeling. So you have these two polarities, and we all know people who ascribe to one or the other of them, and those that lie somewhere in between. Do you have models for relating to both sides of that the worldview?
You know, Barnett, my sense as a coach for a long time has been that it's so important to honor the being. It's so important to believe the best and look for the best in people, in whoever shows up in front of me, whether they're a client or a stranger or a friend. And that's not always easy, you know, because my ego gets in the way, or I'm afraid, or there's something that pushes against me. And so to constantly bring myself back to what's happening for me right now, does that matter? Who's in front of me right now? What matters about them? And, you know, I've trained myself to do this over the years to where I can call this up very easily. And I train my clients to do this. I teach them to do this. You know, if we would teach kids how to be so self-aware, how to be in their body, how to always be looking at the world with curiosity and wonder, and expect the best and be ready for what comes up that may not be the best. If we taught that, I wouldn't have a job.
It's interesting.
That would be fabulous.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I love my work. And yet, if we didn't need this in the world, what an amazing world we would have.
It goes back to something you said earlier. You're aware of the part of you that has it all together, and you're also aware of the part of you that doesn't.
Yeah.
And you hold them both, because what we have all been sort of alluding to is there's a possibility outside of our construct that we are in some ways aware of, but in many ways unaware of. And I think as a coach myself, I mean, part of my job is to hold a vision of possibility for my clients that they may or may not be aware of, not tightly held, just that there is something possible that, you know, because I haven't even come to it. I mean, part of the coaching process is it's a journey that doesn't have a quantifiable destination necessarily. I mean, we basically know the qualities, but we don't know the precise expression or outcome, as it were. And to go on that journey is to be able to hold competency and incompetency simultaneously, right?
Absolutely.
Hey, listen, let's take a quick break. We'll come back. I'm sure there's tons more to comment on, and we'll, of course, come up with some more confusion to splash around.
Yes, yeah, we'll make it very complicated right after these words.
So stay with us here on Cutting Edge Consciousness.
Welcome back to Cutting Edge Consciousness, thought-provoking discussions and bold ideas from the edge of possibility.
Thank you for sticking with us on Cutting Edge Consciousness. We're back. This is Barnett. I'm here with Freeman and Cheryl Esposito, our guest. So before we left, Cheryl, I fell down the coach rabbit hole. Of course, a great coach always holds their clients as being totally complete and
Right.
and so they meet them where they are. So I'm going to come back at you and reframe this. As you were saying earlier, there are clients, some of them are yours and some of them are out in the world looking for support, who have reached a certain point in their lives or in their careers where there are suddenly challenges, and a reframe is called for, an entire reframe. And sometimes there is an opportunity for an entirely different relationship for these individuals to have with their world. The personal process sometimes becomes a world process. What they're looking to achieve for themselves personally sometimes shifts over into an opportunity to give those qualities and to serve a team, an organization, a community, a world. And we, on this show, we've called that, we're not the first to use the term, we've called that sort of post-heroic.
Yes.
And I know you have some thoughts around that kind of maturity in executives and leaders, and I would like to hear you expound upon them.
You know, one of the things that I begin with when I'm working with my clients is the whole concept of self-awareness. Now, those of us who've been in transformation for a long time in this field or this field of coaching, self-awareness is not rocket science, right? We say this is basic. Of course, people want to do this. And what I find is that it is so tough. It is so tough. And I was laughing when I heard you guys speaking before I got on. You were talking about finding your body and being in touch with your body. And that is one of the elements that I begin with about to develop self-awareness. And I help people to understand that their presence, whether they are silent or speaking, whether they are observing or engaging, their presence matters. It's going to have an impact. And so it's so important to be in touch with one's body so that we know what's happening, where's my energy, what's hitting people, how are they viewing me, how are they hearing me. And you've got to be doing this like moment to moment, constantly, while still being present and in the conversation and in the room and observing everybody and seeing how they're observing you. Now, this is where it gets tough. And this is where I start want you to start. This is the first thing I say to people after I explain all that. I say, okay, in the next meeting you're in, this is what I want you to do. I want you to sit in a chair. I want you to feel your butt in the seat and your feet on the floor.
Okay, I have my feet on the floor. My butt is really in the seat. I'm there.
So can you can imagine that when I say this to multinational execs, they look at me and go, oh, "You really said that?" Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
It's like going back to kindergarten.
Absolutely. But it's different from be in the seat. It's feel your butt in the seat, and feel your feet in the floor, and feel how you are connected there. And so they practice that for a while. They feel silly, and they at some point say to me, "Oh, I felt it. I felt it."
So I have a question at this point. How do you respond when they ask you, "What is the point of this, Cheryl? We brought you in here. We have challenges. What is the point of this?"
The point of this is until you are clear about who you are and how you show up, everything you do is only activity. And if you want to have deep and meaningful impact, you have to be completely present. You have to be out of your head. You have to be in your body. You have to be so present that you can feel what's happening with people before they say it.
Yeah. We're talking about, again,
intuition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we're talking about a level of self-awareness that's profound because, unbeknownst to most people, and I'll raise my hand on this one, much of my personality was adaptive. It was the way I learned to survive, get my needs met, and so forth. And I didn't have an awareness of what was directing or what my choices were organizing around, right? And so when the construct, as it were, starts to come apart, when there's a crack in the wall of composure, and we will all see it as an opportunity for the light to get in, but it doesn't always feel that way because it's messy. The old operating system, which for many of us, especially men, is logic and reason, is our heads. The idea of feeling as an operating system, feeling my experience, feeling my way, going from, what we've on this show termed the conceptual self to the actualized self. It's the action. What am I really doing? Not who I say I am, but how am I actually showing up in my life, and what's the impact of my, in the language you used, presence. What am I being versus what am I doing? Which for, again, a lot of us men, but I'd say collectively, at least in the world I see, this is a real challenge.
Absolutely, Freeman. And I'm going to push you even further because we have this tendency to think about how we're feeling.
Yes, indeed.
Think about it, yes. And that is not enough. That is absolutely not enough because if we have to think about it, we cannot be it.
Well, and you're not in the feeling when you're thinking.
I had this, Cheryl, my whole life.
Right.
I did not understand that there was a distinction between thinking about how you are feeling. I thought that was a feeling.
Yes.
Right.
I had no idea until very recently, and when I say this, we get mail, but until very recently, that feelings happened in the body and were not in the head. I thought that every time I lay awake in the middle of the night, anxious over something that was going on in my life, I thought that was a feeling. I've only just recently discovered, no, that's anxiety. And feelings are something that happen in the body.
Yes.
But this is, if this is as a radical and subversive an idea to any of our listeners as it was to me, then pull over, don't drive right away.
Exactly. No, you're right. I mean, it's again, I'm going back to the language. It's disorganizing. Because our lives have organized around beliefs, ideas, agreements, whatever, that have held the construct in place.
And obsessive thinking. So when you're talking to executives, Cheryl, and you're saying, how does it feel to have your feet on the ground? This is welcome to an entirely new orientation to all that is.
Absolutely.
And it's awfully uncertain.
And that's only the beginning.
So what's next?
Beginning. And so the next is they practice this for several weeks, and we talk constantly about what this is like and the way they stumble, and then we talk about the next piece, which is, so now what's important is you now have to not only feel your butt in the seat and your feet on the floor, and be aware of yourself as you're experiencing this. You now have to start paying attention to how people are experiencing you in that moment. Now, again...
That's a lot of juggling. I feel like I could audition at Cirque du Soleil at this point.
Well, it sounds like a simple concept, and being so aware of yourself, your body, the thoughts that are running through your head that may or may not matter, and paying such deep attention with the intention of being fully present to that person or to the room is absolutely a juggling act. It is absolutely disorganizing. It's crazy making if you stay in your head.
Right.
And so now the next step is to be the observer of self. So now this visual that I give them is, okay, so imagine that you're sitting in the seat, feet on the floor, butt in the seat. You're watching people, you're experiencing them, you're still present to them. And the way you do this is you have yourself, you're actually a little self, up above you, watching them, watching you, and this is how you see everything.
Yeah, but
now,
with compassion,
they now know I'm
right?
Crazy. They now know I'm crazy, and but by this point, there's trust that has developed, and they look at me with this book and they say, "Okay, Cheryl," and this is the value of having somebody outside of you who can push your edge to things that really are radical. This sounds simple. This is like, oh, how fun for her if she does this with her clients. Oh, no. This is the beginning of the deep dive. Because as soon as they get past this whole piece where they really can feel deep awareness, things explode.
Big time. There's the sky gets bluer, the trees get brighter and greener. But the critical piece in my mind is that there's compassion. I mean, I work with a similar tool. I call it the conscious compassionate observer because, look, we all have a critical observer. That's easy, but the idea of a compassionate observer, because one of the things Barnett and I have talked about a lot is the capacity for. It's a capacity. There has to be this space for feelings. And the trick with feelings, that they stay in the feeling realm, is that they're dynamic. What happens oftentimes is we're organizing them very quickly, and they're out of feeling and into thought. It's like it's such a slippery slope. It's so quick to start to think our feelings, and then we're out of the feeling. The moment's over. Forget it. You're into a thought. So we're really talking, at least from my perspective, on expanding capacity. And the way that I know to do that is to offer compassion because, all kinds of, hypotheticals, those or back, it's so quick. That critical observer is so quick to jump in the game.
So when, in September, I was in Tibet, and while there...
You were going to show us pictures.
Oh, yeah.
I'm seeing you soon. Bring them.
Yeah, I'm seeing you soon, too,
right,
so bring them and we'll both go to the pictures.
In September, you were in Tibet.
Okay, so my husband and I were there for a month. And in that month, we got to travel, 900 miles across the Tibetan plateau and meet many people and meet many of the nomadic people. So people who live in yak hair tents and, have
cashmere
yak
shawls
dung as their heat. They burn it. And these beautiful women would walk out of these tents. We're in the middle of nowhere, and they're dressed in these beautiful, colorful skirts and blouses and beautiful hats. And, and I'm thinking to myself, now these are white and red and blue and green, all these different colors. How do they stay clean? No, so that's an aside. I was like,
you're right.
But what I was so impressed with when you talk about compassion is how I could see them being compassion, not being compassionate, not having a way of looking that, was like, oh, how nice these are people who are traveling. No, they were fully in their body as compassion. Mm-hmm. And talk about space. It makes me think about how our environment influences how we are. Look, I'm out in the middle of the Tibetan plateau. It's like being on the moon. There's nothing around. There's gorgeous Himalayas out in the distance, and it is vast, and so are they. There's a vastness inside them that we who are attempting to become so self-aware and touch our core of being and be connected to all things, this is what we are striving for, and they are it.
There's presence for you.
Oh, pure. Pure.
Boy, that is gorgeous. That is beautifully said. Well, we have nothing more to say. So.
Home now. The day that Barnet has nothing to say. No. The day that Barnet has nothing to say, you're kidding me. Come on.
That is so beautiful that I just want to fold into it and contemplate into it. And that, unfortunately, that's not really a great idea for radio. But so I will put a pin in that and return to it later on my own time. That is so gorgeous, though. And I can feel there's a felt sense experience that I can feel in my body as you tell us that story.
It's relationship with nature, Barnet. We've had this conversation. A flower doesn't think it's going to bloom. It doesn't ask permission, and it doesn't
do a hypothetical. It doesn't say, well, what if somebody comes at me with a chainsaw?
Yeah, or tries to cut me and put me in a bouquet. It's not going to not blossom because it might get cut and be part of the bouquet on Sunday morning.
So there is this awareness of belonging that happens in nature, and that happens that I think is some of my takeaway of your story, Cheryl. There is an awareness of a connection to and a being a part of an experience. So this expansive landscape that these women live in, they embody it.
Yeah, but belonging doesn't...
They don't feel separate from it.
So this is a big distinction for our culture. Belonging doesn't mean fitting in. There's a sense of one's own purpose and blossom. My innate willingness to blossom. And one of the big distraction patterns, at least in my life, is the fitting in, because I think it's belonging.
Well,
and
it's
not belonging. Belonging is about being who we are fully.
We do the longing part here. The longing is in the sense of
the longing, but not the belonging.
The
B comes in front of the longing.
Yes,
you got to be in order to belong.
There's a beingness of longing and unfulfilled desire that is perpetuated by all kinds of socialization, but
namely thinking.
I think that's probably true.
If we're so in our heads, we're going to go back, and I hate to tie things so tightly, but look, it's such a gorgeous opportunity. This idea of being in your body, a presence, a being, that's the belonging state. It's not the other way around.
I have to just say that Spence is either trying to sell us his timer or he's trying to communicate to us that we need to be quiet. And 17 seconds
before break.
15 seconds before break.
All right, listen, but we're going to extend for a minute because, Cheryl, we love having a conversation with you. We want to do it again, but next time we need you in the studio because that's always funner. And we want people to have access to everything you do. I love your show, by the way. I've listened to your show for quite a while now, and I think it's awesome. Oh. So I want to give folks that information, but also those who, might require some of your other services.
Well, thank you so much, Freeman. This is fun to be with you guys. Are we really at the end? Oh, my God.
Can you believe it?
No.
I can never believe it.
It's so
No, we're not at the end. Actually, we're over the end. We're now into our... We're now into probably our local Chevrolet dealer's time.
Oh, dear. Okay. So if people want to know more about me or, anything that I do and connect with the radio show, just go to alexaconsulting.com, and it's ALEXSA consulting.com, or CherylEsposito.com. Either one will get you there. And I'd be happy to follow up and have a chat with anybody anytime.
All right, Cheryl,
thank you so much. You can also reach her through us at Cutting Edge Consciousness, and anybody that anybody that doesn't remember the first part, we will direct you to her.
Absolutely. And for those of you listening, stay tuned because we'll be back to wrap this up after these messages.
Welcome back to Cutting Edge Consciousness, thought-provoking discussions and bold ideas from the edge of possibility.
And welcome back to Cutting Edge Consciousness. Freeman Michaels here with Barnet Bain. That was great.
Yeah, it's always great to listen to her. She is consistently, reliably, dependably fascinating. I just love listening to her.
Practicing presence. Becoming present to how it feels, this idea that it's interesting. She was talking about it starts with intention. We didn't go into this, but I noted that she said, it starts with an intention. And the intention, of course, in this case is to get in touch with my body. At least for me it is. Mm-hmm. And to really begin to source the information that it has in terms of what's going on in my experience, because my head is less and less trustworthy. I'm aware the disconnect, and this is a lot of my work around the weight release, was recognizing that my body and my head were operating really in two different ways, and not in a constructive two different ways, destructive, right? So getting the whole system on board, where my heart and my head and my body are all working in service to something. But the in service to something is a critical piece. Having the intention, but attention, as we know, follows intention. It follows what you put your focus on. Is so important.
And it doesn't have to be mysterious. It can be, as in my case, it can simply be, I want to feel more alive.
That's it.
It can be all sorts of other things. It can be all kinds of strategic things. And again, it was for me. And at this point, I am exhausted.
Yeah.
I'm exhausted by the strategic thinking.
Yeah.
If I get this piece, if I understand, if I have a relationship with my body, then there'll be an outcome. It's really come to a point for me that I want to develop an intimacy with my body and with feelings that I don't have to think about. And so, as it happens, I am I'm quite in touch with feelings in my body right now.
The power of intention, because you ask and see what happens. Now,
well, you
that's
have to
not
be
the only
careful.
way.
You have to be
No,
careful
this is
about
it.
how you ask, because
Right.
you don't want to get
Bouncing
knock
along
me
the
upside
asphalt
knock me
is not
upside
the
the head.
best. Yeah.
But I sort of did get knocked upside the head, and not in a not in a
Life-threatening way.
yeah, it's very mild. And I can see the treasure in it.
Yeah.
Now, it didn't have to happen that way. There are other ways to more gently get in touch with my body. But I am, given that that's how it happened, I am responding to it in a really beautiful way. I am more easily aware of my body because it is slightly uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have a more conscious awareness where I might otherwise have just drifted back up into my thinking again and, use my body as something to carry around my head. Right now, it's a different kind of experience going on there, and it feels like a new relationship. I'm dating.
Yeah. I there's a couple pieces here. One is that, how often when there's something has to happen for us to recognize. So, for example, an honoring. So when I get sick, I feel vulnerable. And I have come to feel grateful for that, because my illnesses often are directly after I've been going, mm-hmm. which doesn't serve me. And so my body has this way of, ding, 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 hey, Freeman, I'm here. And I've come to really recognize that a lot of times when I get sick, it's a recalibration. It's a way that my body says to me, hey, too much. And so I've really come to honor the vulnerability of being ill, what comes up in being ill. And again, I'm not prescribing that. I think there's more constructive ways. If I'm more in tune with my body and more in my practices, I don't get sick, because my body feels, my body responds. That's one of the pieces of the puzzle. The other piece I wanted to bring up is the intention piece. So this intention of getting in your body, which both of us share, and then finding expression for that, again, in constructive ways, like, oh, that would be a way to do it. So part of putting the intention out in terms of it being like a destiny self-chosen, which you and I talk about, like, I'm really committed to this. This is what I'm looking for in my life. Opportunities arise often. And some are, again, bumping along the asphalt on your side, which you did, falling off a skateboard. But there are other things too, where there's meditation practices, or there's something comes up where I'm like, wow, that would be great. I'm going to do that. And with the intention to be in touch with my body, right? Which I think is what Cheryl was noting.
I think it was. And you and I have discussed this. There is my body, my bones and my organs and my blood and my skin, and that is certainly my body. And from the perspective of it being the first stop of my subconscious, it is also true that my environment, my physical environment, is also my body, my community, my country, my world. That is also my body, and I begin to develop a feedback system. That is a reframe. I have it right now, but as you say, if we want to explore change in our lives, it involves having a focused attention and intention, and it involves owning the reflections that come back in the body, the physical body and the world body, that begin to mirror that attention and intention, and we build upon it. And it's no less than acknowledging that we are creating a life of ceremony that and ritual, so that increasingly we are walking through a hall of mirrors that reflects our own desire and our own value. We're doing that anyway. We're simply walking through exactly that situation, except that it is a conditioned life that we've given certain meanings and certain attitudes. We're talking about, well, what if we reframe it and do it consciously? What would that look like?
Intentionally, with a vision. Because intention in this context becomes a constructive way to organize all the hypotheticals. I'm not saying the hypotheticals aren't going to come. That little guy in the back of the bus is going to go, but. I know that already. But the intention's big enough and generous enough to help organize all that stuff so that I can stay the course and continue to commit to practicing presence, to getting in my body.
If you're in hypotheticals, we're not present.
This is it.
Any hypothetical is a voice from the past.
I get it.
So the moment I hear, well, what if, but I've fallen out of the present, and I am already reliving some experience of my past.
And your intention is what activates that wisdom and what I was calling earlier the compassionate observer, like, oh,
say it again, I'm not following you.
Okay, so the intention, this generous intention, this sense.
The choice maker.
Yeah,
you're talking about intention as the ability to be the chooser.
Exactly, which is what I'm talking about when I say organize.
So the choice making. Whose choice is it from moment to moment?
Well, this is it. This is the critical piece. Is what part of me is doing the choosing, And
first you got to acknowledge, is this a choice?
Well, it's always a choice.
Well, I don't always operate as though that it is.
That's true. That's true. No, you're right. That
it
is
really helps for me to,
own it
I
all.
can get all sort of spiritual, metaphysical, and conscious and say, it's always a choice. But do I behave that way? And am I living with the awareness of that? And the answer is not usually, because I'm not usually present. But to be present to be present, not in the yeah buts, but to be present and aware of the yeah buts, but present. Then I can ask myself, is this a choice? And I do all day as a way to ritualize and to re-sanctify my world, and to remind myself, to make my subconscious conscious that it is a choice and I'm making it, and I'm making it consciously and not just as a theory.
Yeah, this again is the self-awareness that I think Cheryl Esposito was talking about. And she's working with, CEOs of major corporations, teaching them to feel their butts in their seats, period. Become present to where you actually are self-aware in this compassionate and space creating way, and with a held intent, with a sense of possibility, we can begin to, you and I both know this, move more and more towards, I'm going to call it a destiny. We've called it a destiny self-chosen, but I don't even know at some point if it's entirely self-chosen, because the small self likes to do a lot of choosing, and yet there is a scent of something I've followed my entire life, which, by the way, led me to having this conversation, which led me to right here, that I've learned to trust, that I've learned to source in moments, that there's a possibility that's pulling on me to be more of who I could be. And I know personally, for me, that my head isn't going to get that done, that I'm going to have to move from conceptual self to actualized self.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, I think the destiny self-chosen is only self-chosen when we haven't fallen out of the present. If we've fallen out of the present,
it's not self-chosen.
It's still self-chosen.
right.
But it's chosen by, but we are choosing in the moment to give the keys to our possibilities to an aspect of self with less tools and less skills. Right. And so it's a different experience. Yep. It's for example, a hypothetical kind of experience. Yeah. But it is still self-chosen. It's
that's right.
It's chosen. It's chosen. So I'm not going to be responsible. That's a choice.
Yeah, we've used the language. We're back on the reservation. We know that there's something out off the reservation, and we're compelled to seek it because that's what our lives have been about, and find it in moments we've touched it.
I am at this point working on being aware when I more and more. Am I choosing, and what part of me is choosing?
That's fantastic.
And that's a full plate. I'm chewing as fast as I can. It's a lot to swallow. I'm chewing and chewing.
Yeah, but it's in the context of something which has been beckoning you from moment one. I don't know what that is, Barnett. It's something like, I don't know. There's something that I feel I'm here to do and be.
Consciously create success.
Yeah.
Learn how to have fun.
That's it. Well, and something yet undiscovered. Those magical moments where I gave up my knowing enough to find something new and exciting and thrilling and exhilarating and a possibility.
Consciously create success and learn how to have fun.
All right,
I don't.
No, I get it. Yeah.
Anything else?
Yeah. Well, here's the tricky part. When we start talking about success,
people project.
We run right back to the reservation. Success for me is defined as fulfillment. And, look, for me, the only fulfillment I really think there is in my experience and from my perception, and again, this could be back in the reservation, but I don't know, is some element of service, that I have an offer to give in the world. That there's something that's an iteration of...
That's also a story.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, it's
a bigger story.
It's a story, bigger or little. It's a story from a part of you from the past. That's not to say it may or may not be true.
Right.
But who's to say that you being fully in the present, who you are fully in the present, is not already a level of service and value to the world that supersedes any sense of what you ever thought was possible.
Yeah.
So I'm not making value judgments about my stories. I just want to know, are they current? I just want to know, am I choosing or am I being seduced into a story that seems really glamorous and generous from the past? But it's still not. I'm still not present.
Yeah, no.
So
it's such a good point.
as much as I hear you, it wasn't the present story.
Yeah, no, I get it.
That's really where it's slippery. When they're really creepy stories, when they're really dominating, manipulating stories, or self-abandoning stories, or controlling in obvious ways, then it's really easy. But when they're all like, feeding children and stuff,
Yeah.
it's a little sketchier. And don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying we should and shouldn't. That's not about that. I'm just saying what, on the surface of things, where is it coming from? Is it coming from a part of me from the past that has a story about the way things ought to be?
Right.
Not saying I should or shouldn't do them. I just want to know
Yeah, no, I get
I just
it.
want to know what part of me is operating.
No, that's fantastic, and I think that's really, really beautiful. And so here's what I can say about what service means as a quality of experience. And they're very simplistic terms. It's a very present moment experience where I'm not self-conscious in the destructive way, where I'm giving myself and allowing myself, and it tends to be, we've used the language higher frequency. It feels like it's a better bargain in terms of the felt experience, right? Exhilarating or joyful or fun or intimate or whatever. Those are the touchstones, the felt experiences that I can say unequivocally I want more of.
There's a line, that psychologists call agency,
Right.
which is where I do these things in order to feel this or that, and so that
Right.
it is not. Then it is, as you say, it absolutely is a bargain. But when it is not a bargain,
Right. Right.
so
It's not a strategy. So you've used the language in this show and many shows about, again, am I caught back in is this just another strategy?
is it agency?
Yeah, agency.
Am I being loving in order to feel good about
that's
myself?
Right. No, that's right. Well, listen, we'll not get this all wrapped up and tucked in today.
Ever.
Well, maybe someday. I don't know. Who knows? But we're willing to live in that messy world. For those of you who have joined us for this lovely but messy conversation, we're thrilled. And we invite you to keep coming back.
There's a prize if anybody can figure out what we were talking about. You win lunch with us.
That's right. Thanks for tuning in to Cutting Edge Consciousness.